Welcome to White Paper Podcasts, where we discuss an infinite variety of published white papers and scientific studies, making them easy to understand through an informative and entertaining format. Sit back and enjoy our hosts Heather and Andre as they discuss two separate white papers on the relationship between intermittent fasting and obesity. This podcast lasts approximately 11 minutes.
All right, let's dive into this stack of research you've sent over on intermittent fasting, huh? Seems like everyone's trying to figure out if it's actually some miracle cure or just another one of those fad diets.
Yeah, it can feel like you're just picking lottery tickets sometimes, right?
Totally. Everyone's got their own system, but does any of it actually work? Well, to help us decode some of those winning numbers, we're taking a deep dive into two pretty recent research reviews, both from 2023.
Right, gotta look at the research.
Exactly. So, the titles are a mouthful, but we've got Effectiveness of Intermittent Fasting for Weight Loss in Individuals with Obesity, a meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials, and Beneficial Effects of Intermittent Fasting, a narrative review. And, well, clearly you've been thinking about this stuff, so what's specifically caught your eye in these articles?
Well, first off, I think it's brilliant that you've pulled a meta-analysis and a narrative review for this deep dive. The meta-analysis, it gives us that hard data on weight loss, specifically for people with obesity, which is helpful.
Okay, makes sense.
But the narrative review, now that's where I think things get really interesting. Like, it explores this idea called the common soil hypothesis. Have you heard of that?
Not ringing a bell.
So essentially, it suggests that a lot of intermittent fasting's potential benefits, things like weight loss, even better heart health, and even some cellular changes, might all come from the same underlying mechanisms in the body.
Oh, okay. So it's like instead of treating each benefit as a separate thing, this common soil hypothesis is saying there's like a deeper root system, this kind of like hidden tunnel system connecting all these different areas.
Exactly. Like you're literally connecting the dots. And that's part of what makes this research so compelling. It's not just about, will I lose some weight? But it's more like, how could these eating patterns actually be impacting my body at a much more fundamental level?
I'm totally with you.
Yeah.
But can we back up for a second?
Sure.
You mentioned the meta-analysis, right?
Uh-huh.
And that it focused on weight loss for folks with obesity. What did they actually find? Like, did IF actually outperform traditional calorie restriction?
It might surprise you, but the meta-analysis didn't actually find a statistically significant difference between the two.
Wait, really? So there's no magic bullet? But I swear, I've heard people rave about, like, their amazing results with IF.
Yeah, and those experiences are definitely valid. It's just important to remember that just because this, large-scale analysis doesn't show a huge advantage for everyone, it doesn't mean that some people won't find it helpful, Because, truthfully, individual responses to diets can be totally different. Plus, we got to remember that these studies have limitations, Some were short-term, they used different IF protocols, even the people involved were different. Like, some were already pretty healthy to begin with.
So it's not as straightforward as just saying, if F is good or if is bad. It's a lot more nuanced than that. It's kind of like saying, hey, will this umbrella keep me dry? Well, it depends. Is it a drizzle or a monsoon? What kind of umbrella do you even have?
That's a great analogy.
And this is where your second article, that narrative review, becomes super helpful. It digs into some of those nuances, exploring the different types of intermittent fasting, the potential benefits beyond just weight loss, even some of the possible downsides.
Which are important to consider as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We love a balanced approach here. So let's unpack all of this. What are some of the specific benefits that this review highlights? And, probably more importantly, is there solid evidence to support these claims? Because we are all about the evidence here.
Absolutely. And I think the evidence is really mounting, especially in areas like heart health and blood sugar control. But we'll get into some of the specific findings in a bit. But one study even suggested that intermittent fasting might actually impact men and women differently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, suggesting that hormones could play a role.
Wow, okay. Wouldn't that be fascinating if tailoring IF to our own biology is like the next big thing?
Right.
All right, well, that just blew my mind. Hormones and fasting. We have to talk about this. But first, let's break down these benefits one by one. Let's start with heart health. What does the research say about IF's impact on things like cholesterol and blood pressure?
Yeah, so when it comes to cholesterol, some studies have actually shown that intermittent fasting can lead to, modest reductions in both total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol. That's the bad cholesterol.
Right.
And even small reductions in LDL can have like a really positive impact on your long-term heart health.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And it's not just cholesterol either. Some research even suggests that IF might be able to help lower blood pressure too, which is another key factor when we're thinking about cardiovascular disease risk.
Okay, so we're talking about potentially lowering two major risk factors for heart disease. That's huge, especially since heart health is something so many people are concerned about these days.
Oh, absolutely.
What about blood sugar control? I know you mentioned that a bit earlier, and it's definitely something I'm personally interested in.
Yeah. And it's a growing concern for sure. And the research on IF and blood sugar is it's pretty promising.
Oh, okay.
Several studies that were in that narrative review showed that IF can actually improve insulin sensitivity.
Okay, and just to remind me, what does that mean again?
Yeah, so basically it means that your body becomes much more efficient at using insulin, which is that hormone that helps regulate your blood sugar levels.
Right.
Which is, of course, particularly relevant for people who are, at risk for or managing type 2 diabetes.
Got it. So it's almost like IF is giving our metabolic system a tune-up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I have to ask, how does it all actually work? We've talked about weight loss, heart health, blood sugar control. Is there a common thread connecting all these benefits, or are they just totally separate things that happen to be positively impacted?
That's where that common soil hypothesis that we talked about earlier comes in.
Oh, right.
Remember how we were saying it suggests that many of the benefits of IF might actually stem from the same root causes?
Yeah.
Well, one of those roots could very well be how it impacts our cells, specifically a process called autophagy.
Okay, autophagy. We briefly talked about that a little bit earlier. Can you remind us what exactly that is and why it even matters in this context?
Yeah. So imagine your cells have these tiny little recycling centers that basically help break down and recycle all the damaged components. So it's kind of like taking out the trash and composting at the same time.
I like that.
That's essentially what autophagy is. It's the body's way of cleaning house on a cellular level. And some research actually suggests that intermittent fasting might act as a catalyst. It kind of boosts this cleaning process.
So it's like hitting the turbo button on our cellular recycling centers.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this all ties back to that common soil hypothesis, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If a toy can enhance autophagy, it could lead to a whole cascade of positive effects.
Yeah.
From better cellular function to even potentially reduced inflammation.
Precisely. And that's kind of what makes this entire area of research so fascinating. It's not just about, addressing symptoms. It's actually about understanding how different dietary patterns can influence our health at a much more fundamental cellular level.
I love that. This is all incredibly compelling stuff, but I'd be totally remiss if we didn't address the potential downsides, at least a little bit, right?
Right.
The research mentions some possible negative effects on bone density and lean mass, which honestly is something that I know you're keeping an eye on as well. So what's the latest on that?
Yeah. No, you're right to be cautious about that for sure. Those are definitely valid concerns. And the research on IF's long-term effects, well, it's still emerging. We're learning more all the time. But some studies, particularly the ones that are, looking at longer or more extreme fasting protocols, they have shown, there are potential risks to bone and muscle health.
So it's not like a free pass to just stop eating altogether.
No, definitely not. And this is super crucial. Context is key, right?
Right.
Those risks that we're talking about, they really do seem to be less of an issue in those shorter term studies. And plus, there are definitely things you can do to mitigate those risks,
Like what?
Like making sure that you're getting enough protein, making sure you're incorporating resistance training into your routine.
Okay, so being smart about it, basically.
Exactly. But honestly, this is exactly why getting personalized advice is so important.
Totally. It makes sense. I wouldn't just grab any pair of hiking boots before I head out to tackle a mountain, right?
Right.
I want to make sure that they're the right fit for my feet. I want to make sure that they're a good fit for the specific terrain.
Exactly. And it's the same thing with your health, right?
Yeah.
Intermittent fasting, it isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of an approach.
Right.
talking to your doctor or even a registered dietitian, it's absolutely crucial before you make any big changes to how you're eating. They can look at your history. They can, you know what I mean?
Totally, yeah.
They can help you figure out if it's right for you, and they can guide you on how to do it safely. Yeah.
Yeah, solid advice for sure. But all this talk about, cellular cleaning and metabolic shifts, it has me thinking, what if we could apply some of the principles of MIF, even without going all in on a strict protocol?
Ooh. Now you're thinking. That's a really interesting thought. And, in a way, it kind of circles back beautifully to that common soil hypothesis.
Oh, how so?
Because, well, our bodies, they have evolved to be able to handle,
Yeah.
periods of feast and famine. That's how we survived as a species, right?
Yeah. It's only really recently that we've had constant, unlimited access to food.
Exactly. Think about our ancestors. They weren't ordering takeout after a mammoth hunt.
Right. Yeah.
They ate when food was available and they fasted when it wasn't. It was very simple.
Right.
So maybe incorporating some element of that, even if it's not full-blown IF, could be beneficial.
Okay. So what would that even look like?
It could be extending that overnight fast a little bit longer.
Oh.
Or, just being a little bit more mindful about when you're snacking. Little things.
Oh, interesting.
It's really about kind of connecting these evolutionary dots and then figuring out what works best for you. And, I mean, that's the beauty of doing a deep dive like this, right?
For sure.
It's not about, handing you a rigid answer. This is about sparking your curiosity and giving you the knowledge to make more informed decisions.
I love that. We only scratched the surface here today, but hopefully, you're walking away understanding a little bit more about what the science actually says about intermittent fasting, about all the potential benefits, about the risks, and even those really cool areas where, honestly, we just need a lot more research.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, the journey of knowledge, it definitely doesn't end here.
Oh, no, not at all.
What we've talked about today, this can be like a springboard.
Yeah, totally.
For you to do your own exploring, to have more personalized conversations with your healthcare providers.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well,
A huge thank you to you for, diving into this topic with us. This was great.
Yeah.
Till next time, everyone, keep those brains firing and, happy exploring.